This is how difficult it is to get information out. Look at me with no scarf on. It's like a nude for me, is this? This is an extract from Trigonometry. They do some really good stuff. They've got a YouTube channel. This is Charlie Peters talking to the lads at Trigger. And here's what he has to say about when he was trying to get someone to back him when he covered his excellent documentary on the grooming gang scandals. I have to use this phrase on this platform because they're a bit sensitive. Here's what he came up against.
Sorry, can I just pause you there? Because you did offer it to GB News, but
right.
you also offered it to a lot of places. And what was the response when you offered it?
Well, I don't know if anyone else had tried to make a documentary like this before. There'd been lots of coverage in Rochdale, for example, Telford and Rotherham, but there'd never been a national effort. And when I tried to put this forward, and I had some pretty compelling stuff already, nobody was interested. Nobody was interested. An editor, I'm told firsthand from a source at the meeting, an editor at a major right-wing newspaper in this country said, "We don't want a film about Muslims being made by a white man." That was the response to the pitch I'd already made, which included exclusive interviews with survivors, their families, which included revelations that had never been touched before. People being named in failures and cover-ups that had never been named before. Real exposure of ongoing problems, and people just could not give a toss. Could not give a toss.
I don't think that's what happened at all. It's not that they couldn't give a toss. It sounds to me like they were very scared.
Well, only they can say. But I think actually for a lot of people, this is a problem they can overlook. They don't care.
Really?
Yeah, I do think so. I think a lot of people literally do not care. For the same reason that a lot of these officers and local officials failed to investigate these girls because they had, and their concerns, because they had misogynistic views of them being part of the underclass. I think that feeling is still rife in the country today, especially in some of the leading media houses of Britain in London. When you think about the Me Too crisis erupting and everyone discussing a whole range of issues in our sexual politics and how men and women interact, at no point during that sort of cultural reckoning did any of those people think, well, how can we turn this conversation into probably the greatest atrocity in this country since the Second World War tens?
Yeah, if you think about the Me Too situation, this is where Hollywood actresses, consenting adults, feel they were abused and compromised into sexual favours for parts in films, etc. We've all been told about Harvey Weinstein, who's now serving time in jail. Fair enough. But, you know, how can you even say, you know, me too, all these soft Americans who are, yeah, I'm right behind you, honey, and ignore the grooming gangs? How can you even have a campaign running like that and ignore them? And yes, you do treat them like an underclass. You do treat people who come from working class neighbourhoods, who have probably made bad decisions, got involved with the wrong people, have probably been let down with the families, let down with society, let down with authority figures, let down with councils, police. The list is endless. You treat them like the underclass, like trash. There's even a word for them that they use on official documents, you know, when they're sending notes to each other. It's called WETs. White estate trash. That's a thing. How disgusting is that, to talk about our young? Not everybody comes to fruition with a silver spoon in their mouth. You know, I'm from a working class background, decent parents, terraced house in Blackburn. Not much hope for the future other than how do I get out of this? How do I not live like my parents? Loved them to death. They were great people. My mum was the funniest person I met, and my dad was not particularly demonstrative feelings wise. We were always at bloody work. But he was a good man. He never missed a day's work. And, you know, they weren't the brightest of people, but my mother certainly wasn't stupid. And I had a good upbringing. I had a kindly upbringing. I had an upbringing where, even though my home was not very tidy, a bit of a mess actually, we were scruffy ones that you didn't want to live next door to, it was filled with love, and I still wanted to be around them. But not everybody gets that. Some girls don't get that at all. And it's all right looking down your nose at them. These are girls that are wandering around hungry. They've no food in their bellies. There's no food in the house, let alone anything else. And then someone tempts you with takeaway food in a nice car where the heater's on and it's warm. And they're trying to pick you up on the street, and they're being kind to you and nice, and they're telling you you're great. These are kids' heads, kids' mentality that process the world differently. You don't process the world at 13, and for some 11, some backward, as you would call it, some with learning difficulties, still used and abused. And these morons in positions of power and authority did not step up to the plate to help them out. It disgusts me beyond belief. You couldn't even post about it on Facebook 5 years ago. Your posts got censored. How pathetic is that? And you have a Rochdale MP who knew about it at the time and basically was told by other people, don't go down. I think he was Labour at the time. He's got a funny name. You'll know it. You'll put it on the thread. And he was told not to go there. Don't go down there. That's like political suicide. Well, we're sick of you covering your own arses. Do you know that? We're so sick of the way you cover your own arses in Parliament and getting your wage rises and your index-linked pensions and all the other freebies, the discounted food. Oh, travel's no problem. You just claim it all back. We'll pick that bill up. The taxpayer. And these kids, they're kids. The bits of kids that have been left to fend for themselves. And the way you treat anybody trying to highlight this topic, it's with disdain. And of course the middle class, the middle class, where's the human rights lawyers? These people can defend rapists. These human rights lawyers actually take the trouble to put a suit on, get up in the morning, brush the teeth, go out the front door, turn up in court and defend someone who's an actual criminal from another country by giving him the right to stay here with pathetic arguments like, oh, he'll miss his cat. Ridiculous stuff. He's got the right to family life to live near a cousin he's never met, who he only found out was his cousin like 3 days before he turned up. The whole lot stinks, the way we're treated. And the working class are treated worst of all. And one thing I will not sit back and just pretend I haven't noticed, and that is the way commentators are still using the working class. I'm sorry, but you are. You're using the working class. You're commentating on issues that will never affect you. And I will not believe for 1 minute that the way Nigel Farage is approaching his possibility of coming to power is the wrong route. I think it's just the right route if he's going to get there. You have a left-wing country. You have to face that. The country is either apathetic or left-wing. The ones that think like us, there's not enough of us. So you have to appeal to the middle ground. And I don't care who says it, because fortunately, I'm not a yes man. I don't just put stuff out there for other people's benefit. I say what I see, and I think if something needs interpreting in possibly a format you haven't thought of, it's good to have it. You don't have to agree with me. I watched the Jordan Peterson piece to camera. It was very good on most of the points, but I do not agree with him. Basically saying that he thinks Nigel Farage has somehow capitulated to Islam. It's not capitulation. This is a man in Nigel Farage who worked alongside Enoch Powell. And Enoch Powell was known to be an absolutely first-class military strategist. So this is what I want you to take home from this. I truly believe in speaking out for people with problems like the grooming gangs who get neglected. Absolutely, 100%, and I'm grateful for anybody who does it, and I'm sure Maggie Oliver is. And that's why we must talk about it and keep it alive. But what I won't put up with, what I won't draw your attention to, if you want to put up with it and get on board, that's your decision. But it's not for me. And that's when I see influential voices basically saying that Nigel Farage isn't hard-hitting enough with Islam. I think to be full on with anybody's religion or belief system, to attack it head on, is a hiding to nowhere. You're going nowhere with that attitude. And that attitude would lead to facing probably an overwhelming amount of extremists, fundamentalists, who will take it seriously. Where does that end? After you've revved everybody up, getting them annoyed, telling them that Nigel Farage isn't tough enough and he's not hard enough on it, after you've revved everybody up into that, what do you think the next stage is after that? After they're all angry, they want to get it out of the system, what do you think the next stage is? Because the next stage is to take to the streets. And in what format? Because you're up against an adversary here with extremists that, if they chose to, could have access to ceremonial swords because 9,000 of them traipse through Blackburn. I think it's after one particular religious celebration. They wear them on the sides very proudly, but nevertheless, they could be used as a weapon of choice. Have you any idea how much carnage that would cause with people who are going to go out there? It's all right, Jordan Peterson talking about Nigel Farage not being tough enough. He comes from a country where you're allowed to have a sidearm, which is a handgun. He comes from Canada, where you can, with a licence, have a handgun. You can't in this country. You'd have to use it at a gun club and leave it at a gun club. And you'd have to be vetted before you can get a shotgun. So we aren't in a position like America or Canada where we have the right to bear arms. We are up against something that if it went sour and it went the whole hog, which is physical confrontation, you already know which side the police are going to go down on, because the last 12 months of demonstrations in London have surely shown you that. You're not dealing with a rational police force or an impartial police force. You're dealing with a police force that's told what to do. And what they will do is keep it as calm as possible. So they'll side with the people who could potentially cause the most damage, which is the ones that could potentially use their ceremonial stuff in aggression. And I would not want to be the politician who incites something that ends up in such bloodshed. I would run away from that, I really would. And it's all right for commentators talking about it, because these commentators that are revving you up to think that's the only route forward, when there's a much better way of handling this, and the way you handle this is you stop making Britain so attractive to people coming, and you make sure that people who are here speak English, and there should be some laws against being allowed to stay here long term if you can't speak the language. You can't stay in Austria unless you can speak the language. You can't stay in Spain unless you can speak the language, because you can stay, you don't have to speak it. But if you want to learn anything, if you want to go to a doctor or have a hospital appointment, they'll only talk to you on the National Health Service in Spanish. So you have to pay for your own interpreter. Stop funding interpreters. Stop funding documents in other languages. Make people stand on their own 2 feet. Make people have at least one working person in a household. Stop the boats easily enough. You tariff France. I've said it before. You tariff France 25% on wine, cheese and cars. That'd do it. You don't need to keep them out. The French will keep them in. Currently the French are using us like they're Rwanda. So there's 1,000,001 protocols you could put in. Process asylum claims quicker, and when they fail, get them out. Get out the ECHR. And if you can't get out the ECHR, rip it up. It's only a piece of paper. What are they going to do? Go to war with you? What are they going to do? Stand there and say, this isn't right? Cause a diplomatic incident. There's 1,000,001 things you can do. But fueling people's anger to expect direct confrontation or yearn for it, to me, is the wrong thing to do. Because these people saying it, these people that sit on the chat shows, crisply dressed, and do the podcasts in nice, expensive colognes and suits, and these people that are talking like this about it's not strong enough, they have no intention of going on the battlefield. They won't be down there at street level in some inner city alongside you. And what will happen is, you've seen how they've handled it with Southport. They'll handle it like that with everything else. Because for anything to work where we demonstrate against it, you need a regime change. You need to get this woke left-wing thinking out of power. We've had it in power since Margaret Thatcher. We've not had a change of government since then. So you need to get that out of power before you can do anything. So I think it's really bad advice to think Nigel Farage is soft. I think it's the worst advice you could get. If that puts you off me, or you want to come up with some ridiculous comment like, oh, she must be sleeping with him, then it shows what a screwball you are if you come out with that. If you don't want to listen to me and you think I've got it wrong, that's fine, that's your opinion. But I'm telling you now, there's 67 million people in this country who basically want a quiet life. They want affordable energy, they want food they can buy, they want to go on their holidays, change the car, and hope the kids grow up to be decent. That's all they want. It's not a lot to ask. People don't want to go and take to the streets to fight, and those who do, there's not enough of you. Because the fundamentalists, the maniacs that would retaliate, they'll never give up. They're fanatics. They're fanatics. So, whilst you're there and you've had your confrontation, it's all kicked off in whatever city it kicks off, and you're sat there, probably in a jail cell, waiting for bail that's never going to come, or even worse, sat in A&E, bleeding out. These commentators that have been revving it up and telling you that Nigel Farage is soft, they'll be sat in TV studios or on a podcast, just as crisply dressed as they were before the fracas, and they'll tell you how dreadful it's been and how everybody's getting treated unfairly. And then they'll jump in a taxi and go home and probably have a nice meal in a restaurant. They won't be down there with you. You need to wake up, because what you've got to stop doing as the working class is stop being grateful because somebody posh or somebody famous or somebody rich has decided to come onto your side. It's good that Jordan Peterson speaks out about the things that we believe in, but it's not very good not understanding the format of the country, a left-wing politics in charge, left-wing police force, left-wing universities, left-wing everything, and expect people to go and challenge one particular religion. Head on, boom. What a massive mistake that would be. Now, if that puts you off me, as I say, feel free to jog on, because I'm 67. I do not want that. I do not want it for anybody that I love, and I don't want it for anybody that I think a lot about. I think it's a massive mistake, and I think you can achieve more by going down a more passive route. Other countries manage immigration without getting this far down the road. And all we need, the one thing that's missing in British politics, is the political will to instigate some sensible thinking. So you need a regime change to do that. And the only party that's offering it, that's capable, even a smidgen capable of doing it, is the Reform Party. As it's set up, completely fine. Give them a chance. The other way is, it's never going to work. All you'll have is Southport on steroids and more people howling at the moon about how unjust it is. And think about that, these commentators that are telling you that it's not strong enough. They won't be stood next to you. It's the working class again that'll be out there on the street. The working class, cajoled into taking action it cannot afford to take. Be more strategic in your approach. There's loads of things you could do, but you don't want to do it because it hasn't got the glamour of turning out in the street.